Hey everyone, and welcome back for episode number 4. This week we're going to be talking about the last 300 to 400 years here in America. You're probably going to hear some stuff that you've heard of before, maybe see a few pictures of equipment that's even on your house. A lot of big names in this video. It's going to be pretty fast moving, a lot to keep up on. So if you got any questions, be sure to drop a comment. And if it's all new to you, great. If you've heard something before, also great. But I hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoy this one as well. So let's get going. After the founding of America, England tightened restrictions and enforced policies restricting the artisans of the day from leaving the country and then going to America. The thought process with this was that if the tradesmen couldn't leave, then they couldn't start foreign competing companies for England. Due to this, the early locks made by American locksmiths did not sell well. The most common type of lock used at the time were simple lock bolts mounted on the inside of the door that could be opened with a string that fed through the door to the outside of the house. If you've ever heard the phrase, "the latch string's always out," this is where that comes from. Obviously, the biggest downfall of these locks was that someone would need to be inside the house, or the latch string had to be through the door. If no one was home, usually the house was left unlocked, and at night the string would be pulled back inside, quote-unquote, locking the door. Over the next several hundred years, the American industry took off. The country began to grow, and improved security was needed. The demand for better locks increased, and so did the number of locksmiths. By 1920, there had been over 3,000 different types of locks patented. In 1805, Abraham O. Stransbury, an American physician, was granted an English patent for a pin tumbler lock that was a cross between the Egyptian locks and Brahma's locks. 2 years later, his design was granted his first ever lock patent by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Stansbury's lock consisted of segmented pins that would automatically relock when any tumbler was pushed too far. Let's jump to 1836, when two inventors, Andrews and Newell, were granted patents on the new lock feature, removable tumblers. This resulted in the option to disassemble and rearrange the tumblers in the lock. The keys also had interchangeable bits that could be matched to different tumbler arrangements. If this was a lock that you had on your door, once it was locked at the end of the night, you could scramble the bits so that if a thief somehow got a key, it would take them hours to find the right combination. Newell was a big fan of their new lock design, so much so that he offered $500 to anyone who could open it. Eventually, a master mechanic got it opened and claimed the money. Newell realized the best way to make this lock as efficient as possible would be to make all of the internals of the lock hidden from view. This worked out, and these sealed locks began to appear on bank safes as a combination lock. If you remember from last week, I briefly mentioned Mr. A.C. Hobbs, the man who was able to open famed English locks in 1851. But before that, most people resorted to making false keys to get locks opened. A slow, tedious, and probably very aggravating process. You could spend hundreds of hours, not to mention thousands of key combinations, before you might find the right one. Hobbs' success came from doing it differently. He relied on applying pressure to the bolt while manipulating one lever at a time with a small pick that would fit into the keyhole. Hobbs patented his own lock called the protector lock, which was also pickable and was opened in 1854 by one of Chubb's locksmiths. Up until the early 19th century, locks had all been made by hand, which meant each locksmith could put their own ideas into play, whether that be the looks, type of mechanism, number of lever tumblers, cams, and or wards, and with this came the customization and individuality of keys as well. In 1844, Linus Yale Sr. of Middletown, Connecticut, patented what he named his quadruple bank lock, a mix of Egyptian styling with Brahma and Stransbury mechanics. This quadruplex lock had a cylinder subassembly that restricted access to the lock bolt. In 1848, he patented another pin tumbler design, which was improved on by his son, Linus Yale Jr., who is credited with inventing the modern pin tumbler lock. What is often regarded as the most important modern lock development of all time, the Yale Mortise cylinder lock, designed by Linus Yale Jr., was patented in 1865 and completely changed the game. This new design could not only be rekeyed, but provided high-level security, could be mass-produced, and could be used in doors of a variety of thicknesses. Since 1865, a few big changes have been made to the basic design of mechanical lock cylinders. New, unique keys and keyways, the addition of tumblers, changing tumbler positions, a variety of tumbler shapes and sizes, and the combination of two or more basic types of internal construction. For example, a lock with both pin tumblers and wards. In 1916, Samuel Segal created the Jimmy-proof lock, aka the interlocking deadbolt, a surface-mounted lock with vertical bolts interlocking through eye loops of the strike and lock body. In 1920, Frank E. Best received his first patent for the interchangeable core lock. This core was designed to fit and be swappable with padlocks, mortise cylinders, deadbolts, key-in knobs, as well as a few other types. Jumping back in time again, in 1833, the three Blake brothers received a patent for their new door latch with two connecting knobs. Their design required a hole to be drilled through the door on both sides for the knobs to connect and a hole through the edge for the latch to go through. The same process is still used today. Up until this point, all door locks and latches had been surface mounted, and in 1834 they formed the Blake Brothers Lock Company and began mass producing their knobs and latches. Fast forward again to 1928, when Walter Schlage invented and patented a cylindrical lock that incorporates a locking mechanism between the two knobs. Key-in knob locks are the commonplace for hardware today. In 1933, the Chicago Lock Company introduced the tubular key lock called the Chicago Ace lock. It was the same principle as a pin tumbler lock, simply made on a circular keyway. The circle keyway made it difficult to pick without special tools. These locks are still super common and are mostly found on vending machines and washing machines, as well as some bike locks and padlocks. Roy C. Spain developed the Medeco high-security cylinder in 1967. The cylinder used chisel-pointed rotating pins and restricted angularly bitted keys that made picking and impressing harder. To open each lock using the key, you not only had to set each pin to the proper height, but also rotate each pin to the proper position for the sidebar to retract. Hey, I warned you. It was an awful lot of info all coming very fast, but hopefully you picked up on something here and there that you found interesting, maybe even applicable to the hardware in your own home. We'd love it if you could leave us a like, follow us on our socials if you don't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and share the video so we can continue to teach others. Thanks again, and stay tuned for more content from Hawkeye Lock and Security.